Taylor Swift now owns all of her original work. And before you say, I don't care about this, she's a wealthy pop star, I think you should. I think ultimately this debate over her masters and who has creative control and distribution rights will become increasingly pertinent as we move into a more digital and AI generated world. The future of music and who gets to have it, control it, and re-release it is going to be something we hear a lot, especially because the future of where the lines are and the gray area that's developing over creativity and intellectual property are going to become more and more blurred before they become more well defined. So I want to talk about this case. I'm going to do a brief rundown of the history. I'm going to talk about what it means in terms of copyright law to have control of your masters. And I'm also going to talk a little bit about things I think that Taylor Swift's teams did that are interesting strategy to kind of work around this serious block for an artist to not be able to perform your original music. Let's get into it. We're actually coming up on the 6-year anniversary of when Big Machine Records sold the masters for Taylor Swift's first 6 albums to music producer Scooter Braun. Now, of course, there's a ton of drama between Taylor Swift and Scooter Braun and celebrity culture, but I want to focus more on the business aspect of this. So Taylor Swift, who began releasing music when she was really young, when she was a teenager, released 6 albums. One is her eponymous debut album, Fearless, Speak Now, and Red, Reputation. And it ultimately meant that if she were to perform these, Scooter Braun would be making money off of her, which she was adamantly against. I think it was actually Kelly Clarkson who tweeted at her when this news broke that she should re-record them. Because Taylor Swift said she wasn't even offered the chance to buy her master. She found out when everybody else did that Scooter Braun, her arch nemesis, was getting control of essentially her lifetime's work. I mean, especially when you start recording when you're a teenager, I can't imagine decades of your life being under the control of someone else. Even if you're not into pop music, even if you're not into Taylor Swift, that would be a really bitter pill for me to swallow. So Taylor Swift, again, with some prompting from other musicians, began re-recording her album. So you would see her album and then Taylor's version, and that's been abbreviated to TV. If you talk to Taylor Swift fans about this, they became dedicated to only playing Taylor's versions of songs. And during this time, she also released new music. So there were some albums that were original made after she had left Big Machine, after her masters had been sold when she was with her new record label. Today, May 30th, 2025, she announced that she had regained control of her masters. In a letter released on her website, Taylor Swift wrote, "I'm trying to gather my thoughts into something coherent, but right now my mind is just a slideshow. A flashback sequence of all the times I daydreamed about, wished for, and pined away for a chance to get to tell you this news. All the times I was this close to reaching out for it, only for it to fall through. I almost stopped thinking it could ever happen, after 20 years of having the carrot dangled and then yanked away. But that's all in the past now. I've been bursting into tears of joy at random intervals ever since I found out that this is really happening, and I get to say those words. All of the music I ever made now belongs to me. And all of my music videos, all of the concert films, the album art and photography, the unreleased songs, the memories, the magic, the madness, every single era. My entire life's work. To say this has been my greatest dream come true is actually being pretty reserved about it. To my fans, you know how important this has been to me, so much so that I meticulously re-recorded and released 4 of my albums, calling them Taylor's version. The passionate support you showed those albums and the success stories you turned the Eras Tour into is why I was able to buy back my music. I can't thank you enough for helping me reunite with the art that I have dedicated my life to, but have never owned until now." I bet for the majority of people, the fact that Taylor Swift doesn't own and exclusively control her music, even though it's original to her, is surprising. And it has to do with U.S. copyright law. According to the law firm Fitzpatrick, Lentz, and Bubba, there are 2 distinct forms of copyright. One is composition, meaning the lyrics and musical notes, and one is the master's recording. In Taylor Swift's case, she owns the composition rights to her earlier albums, but not the master's rights. Those were originally owned by Big Machine Records. This is significant because the master's recording copyright owners has exclusive rights to reproduce, perform, distribute the recorded version of the song. So after the June 2019 sale of her music to Scooter Braun, Taylor Swift re-recorded. Every song was re-recorded. There was no sampling from the original, but they sound almost identical. Fans will point out to you where she changed lyrics or added stuff. But ultimately, even though they sound essentially the same, they are new recordings. And even though they have almost the same title, all the titles include Taylor's version on the end, making there no conflict between the original and this new recording. And this is permitted under copyright law. During this time, she was building towards the Eras Tour. So this is sort of a reflection on all of her years as a performer. It was after COVID. She had to cancel a tour because of COVID. And I think this was one of the times her team, Taylor Swift, whoever came up with it, showed a particularly brilliant streak. So you have these fans who are already rabidly on her side. They're angry with Scooter Braun. They are looking to support this pop star they feel an intense emotional attachment to. And they're also getting ready to be really nostalgic. They're buying tickets to this tour where they'll hear songs that they grew up listening to, that they probably have their own memories that sort of play alongside when these songs were released and popular. And Taylor Swift and her team, who know the devotion of her fans, would strategically release albums during this tour. I remember one of them was her Speak Now album, which was one of her early ones, in Nashville. And you could see on social media the excitement from the crowd. It was so loud. It was so, all the cheering in the stadium. They really felt like this was a win, and they were excited about these things. Fans would also scrutinize her costumes during the tour or her outfits when she was on break from tour to see if she was hinting at what album was coming next or if an original album was about to be released. This has always been something the fans do for her, but it was heightened during this time when they didn't know if they were getting original music or a re-record, which again has this alliance to the pop star that they are so devoted to. As we go towards an potentially AI infringed creative industry, I think it's interesting that fans crave whatever is coming directly from the artist. So even though the music, the originals are originally from Taylor Swift, when they began to be severed, when they were no longer under Taylor Swift, or she had basically said, I am not benefiting from these anymore, fans switched. They wanted whatever she felt like she was directly contributing to. And it makes me wonder, like, artists who begin to incorporate AI into their production or their creative process, will fans feel as though it's not the same thing? Kind of like CDs versus vinyl, when people say that one sound is more pure. Are people going to say, this was created by someone on their own or with their creative team, versus this was made by a computer to sound essentially like something this would produce, and I don't feel the same kind of attachment to it? It's hard to say what's coming, but it's rapidly approaching. Record labels are also responding to this conflict. They're adding clauses to artist contracts to prevent them from re-recording for huge periods of time. So, while in the past it might have been, 2 years or smaller, shorter periods, there are clauses now being rolled into contracts for artists saying you cannot re-record for 10, 20, 30 years after you are released from this contract or whatever happens. That would definitely change the trajectory and an artist's ability to respond. In an article published in 2023, Billboard noted the major labels Universal Music Group, Sony Music Entertainment, and Warner Music Group have recently overhauled contracts for new signees, according to top music attorneys, some demanding that artists will wait an unprecedented 10, 15, or even 30 years to re-record releases after departing their record companies. Quote, the first time I saw it, I tried to get rid of it entirely, says Josh Karp, a veteran attorney who has viewed the new restrictions in UMG contracts. I was like, what is this? This is strange. Why would we agree to further restrictions than we've already agreed to in the past with the same label? Billboard continued, for decades, standard major label recording contracts stated artists had to wait for the latter of two periods to expire before they could put out re-recorded versions, Swift style. It could have been 5 to 7 years from the release date of the original or 2 years after the contract expired. Today, attorneys are receiving label contracts that expand that period to 10 or 15 years or more, and the attorneys are pushing back. It becomes one of a multitude of items you're fighting, Karp says. So any new artist that gets signed to a major record label is going to have to be even more careful when they decide what they're agreeing to. You hear this all the time. I think Chappell Rowan has a story like this where she was signed to a record label when she was like 17 and she moved out to LA and she was in development for years, and then they cut her and she felt hurt probably, but also like she had been basically not allowed to do anything and her career had stagnated because of it. Now, not only do you have to push to get your music out there, but also if you choose to leave the record label, it's essentially like you can't take anything with you. It's like Taylor Swift found the last loophole and so they closed it. Now, I'm not a lawyer. I'm sure there's I've never seen one of these contracts, but it's interesting to think if you are making this your career and you don't have the rights to essentially your intellectual property, what do you have? What can you take with you? Now, obviously, in Taylor Swift's case, she had an intensely loyal fan base and a ton of money because she was so successful. But if you're a smaller artist, what happens? And I don't have the answer for that. It's just something that I think we will see become more and more debated because distribution rights have evolved. It's not just CDs and radio play anymore. Like your song could go on TikTok, it could go on Instagram Reels, it could go in a movie, it could go a ton of different places. And if you don't want it there, but you don't own your masters, you don't have the right to say anything. You also don't make the money off of it, I assume. So complicated as we get more forms of technology that can incorporate music. Is the artist more separated from the music than ever? It's just kind of a weird, I don't want to say dystopian, but it's just a new frontier that people at this crux of business and creativity will have to figure out. And then, like I said, you add the AI complication. So if you are an artist and a record label is working with you, but then they have a form of AI that scrapes part of your music and incorporates it into a new song, do you have a path forward? Is that a copyright infringement? If you're under the same label and they own your masters, they own the masters to this new AI song that's sort of ripping you off, is there nothing you can do? Again, I don't have the answer. I would love to have a music attorney weigh in on this, but you might have to wait until we have an actual case of that. Everything is developing so rapidly that it could change tomorrow. At the end of her letter, Taylor Swift acknowledged this debate over masters and her role in advancing the conversation for artists. She wrote, "I'm extremely heartened by the conversation this saga has reignited within my industry among artists and fans. Every time a new artist tells me that they negotiated to own their master's recordings in their record contracts because of this fight, I'm reminded of how important it was for all of this to happen. Thank you for being curious about something that used to be thought of as too industry-centric for broad discussion. You'll never know how much it means to me that you cared." So what do you think? Do you think artists should have complete control over their masters? Or do you think it's reasonable that record labels that have invested hundreds, if not millions of dollars in these artists get some sort of control over the final product? I don't have a clear answer, but as we edge towards a more ambiguous creative process, i.e. one that incorporates AI, I strongly tend to favor whatever gives the human more control over the computer. And I think if the industry could find a way to have less input from artists that will eventually leave for other contracts, they might. So I think this is a fight worth having now before the area gets even more complicated and more nuanced. Let me know what you think. Even if you're not a Taylor Swift fan, let's just focus on the business qualms at hand. And thank you so much for watching. If there's anything you want to see for next week, drop me a comment. I love reading your discussion. I keep up with it. It's part of my, it's my favorite part of doing these videos. So thanks, and I'll see you next week.